All right, welcome back, guys. So we're going to continue on talking about our managing remote server topic this week. And in the last video lab, I showed you how to create an unprivileged user using the add user command. And currently I'm logged in as that user, Jeff S. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out, and then I'm going to log back in as root, because we still have some unfinished business to take care of with our root user. So let's get back into our server as root. And again, you know you're in as the root user because it says root at hello world. And we need to make a couple of changes. So I had mentioned earlier that we want to be able to use the sudo command to allow unprivileged users to temporarily authenticate as root and issue new commands, modify files, delete things, install software. There's lots of reasons we need to temporarily be the root user so we can make those changes. The perfect example of that is when you're installing new software on your own PC or Mac. A lot of times the software installer will ask you to enter your administrator password so that you can install software. You're only temporarily granting that application permission to write those files. As soon as the installer is done, that permission is revoked. Some of you may have experience working within corporate networks or on machines that are not yours, that you don't have control over. When you try to install software, it doesn't let you because you don't know what that administrator password is. You're an unprivileged user. So we want to be able to have some privileges to the server. If we're the server administrator, we obviously need to be able to make changes, delete files, and install software. But we don't want to have that power all the time because one mistyped command and we could really screw some things up. So what we want to do is we want to add users to the root or to the wheel group so that we can then have root permissions on our uncurrent unprivileged users. So the first thing we'll do is open the sudoers file. And I'll show you what that is. That was a little quick. Let me exit out of here. So what I'm doing, and just for reference, typically the etc directory is where you're going to find a lot of configuration files. So you're going to find the PHP configuration files and MySQL and Apache. Apache's at etc. There it is, Apache 2. In our case, though, it's also where the sudoers file is, or the main file that controls how the root user and sudo operates. So let's go into etc sudoers, and you can see up here a couple of things. It says this file must be edited with the vi sudo command. And this is a particular instance of when you can't just edit a file with any old editor. Sorry about the sirens in the background, guys. The inauguration was today, so there's cops everywhere. So if you hear some sirens in the background, I do apologize for that. So vi sudo. So right now we're in as nano, and you know that because we issued the nano etc sudoers command. So if we were going to try to modify this right now, it wouldn't let us do it. This isn't the proper way to edit this file, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But I do want to go and show you guys a few things here. So here are a couple of things that we want to make note of while we're in here. So first and foremost, we have this command. We have this line right here, this %admin, and the comment above it says members of the admin group may gain root privileges. So that means anytime I add a user to the admin group, we should be able to issue the sudo command. So the same goes with this sudo down here, but we don't want to add anyone to this sudo group, only the admin group. You can also add usernames directly to this file. So for instance, we could add, Jeff S under here, and then we could, kind of copy this same, copy the same mechanism save that, and now I would be able to have root permissions. But we don't want to specifically, I don't want to have to go in here every time we create a new user and add them to this file. It's much easier to add people to the admin group than to have to go and add users all the time in this file. So let's get out of here. Let's not save it. I do briefly want to show you the vi sudo command. So if we just type vi sudo and hit enter, you'll see now that we're back in Nano, but we've entered Nano through the vi sudo command. So we're doing this in a proper way now instead of just typing nano and then the sudoers file. So it doesn't really look any different, and I know that's a little confusing, but anytime you need to edit the sudo parameters, settings, anything, you always want to use vi sudo. And the reason it's called vi sudo is because vi is actually a text editor, or vim is actually a text editor. So if we type vi, see, it actually opens up a new text editor here. And I'm not going to get too much into Vim. For those of you that are familiar with it, you may prefer it to like Emacs or Nano. It's a two-mode editor, so it takes a little bit of getting used to if you're not used to working that way. I think Nano operates more like a text editor that you would find on your local machine. So I think it's a little bit easier to use. So referencing our slides from earlier. So to add a user to a particular group, we need to use the user mod function with the A flag for add and G for group. And then right after the G flag, we need to tell it what group we want to be added to and what user we want added to the group. So let's recap. User mod is the command. We're issuing this command with two flags, the A for add and the big G for group. We're adding the group admin. We're adding Jeff S to the group admin. So I always get confused by this command because I never know which comes first, the user or the group. One way to remember it is to just add the group after you hit the group flag. So you know -G stands for group. Just do a space and then type the group you want and then the user you want added to that group. So now if we hit enter, group admin does not exist. Okay, so the problem here is that when we were in that sudoers file, it just said anyone that's added to the admin group will have sudoers permission. But if no admin group exists, we need to create it first. So the first thing we need to do is do a group add admin. And now we can reissue the user mod command, and now we're added to that group. And you can tell that it worked because nothing really showed up. It just kind of went to the next line. So we know that that worked properly. If it didn't work, we would get errors like we did up here. So this is a good error to throw here. I wanted to show you guys that this was going to come up if you haven't already added admin. So now what we can do is we can log out, log back in as Jeff S, and see if we can issue the sudo command. So let's just go sudo touch root.txt. Now it's going to ask you for a password here. Just enter your normal password for this user account, not the root password, just your normal password that you just used to log in as the Jeff S user or as whatever other user you created there. Okay, so that worked because again it just showed up the second line. So now if we do an ls-al, again to list all the files in this directory, you can see that we created this root.txt, and look at the permissions. Look at the root permissions here. They are, or excuse me, look at the user and group. It's all root. So now if I were to try to edit that without using sudo, so let's go, okay, and let's try to put something in there and save it. Okay, see error, see this error down here? Error writing root.txt, permission denied. So bummer, I can't really do anything to that. And the reason I can't do anything to that is because I don't own that file. I created it when I was temporarily authenticated as root. And now that I'm not temporarily authenticated as a root, I can't do anything to this file, nothing. As you can see here from the permissions, the group and the world can only read it. So all I can do is open it up and see what's inside of it. If I want to edit that file as root, I've got to type sudo nano root.txt. Now I can edit the file, save it, and I don't encounter those permission errors. So now if you go lsal, you can see that we've modified the file, as you can see that there's something in it now. And now if I just go nano, or I could even do tail root.txt and see what's inside of the file. I can even open it up in nano if I want, but I can't make changes to it. If I try to save these, again, I get a permission denied error. There we go. Now, the other cool thing is because I'm now sudoable, I can type sudo apt get update. And I can run that without having to worry about authenticating. So now I can basically do anything a root user could do, and we can essentially go in and disable the root user. There's no reason I ever need to be logged in as the root user anymore. So what we really should do is disable that login ability through SSH. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that in the next lesson. So just a quick recap. Remember, after you've added yourself to the admin group, you can execute root permissions using sudo. Anything you do as sudo will be saved as the root user, meaning when you're not authenticated as sudo, you can't touch it. You can't do anything to it. In most cases, all you can do is read it. Once you've created folders and files with sudo, again, only the root user or someone authenticated as root can make any changes to that. But now that we are a rootable user, someone that can authenticate as sudo, we can go in and install software and basically do everything that a privileged user can without all the nasty risk of accidentally blowing the server up. Because one of the great things about sudo is that it always asks you for a password. That's not true. It doesn't always ask you for a password. It does, I think, after about 5 or 10 minutes. So if you've used sudo over and over again, it's going to allow you to just type it in. If you wait a little bit, it's going to reprompt you for your password. But keep in mind, in order to blow something up, there's one extra command you have to type now as sudo, and you have to authenticate. So there's an extra layer of kind of protection there from us screwing something up. So in the next lesson, like I said, we're gonna lock down our root user and not allow it to log in anymore. So we'll see you guys in the next video.